Good afternoon, Jenny. Welcome to the program. As you know, that with the increasing frequency and severity of climate events globally, it comes with a heightened awareness of climate change by all walks of society. And people are asking for actions from companies, regulators, asset managers, and asset owners. As the CEO of one of the largest asset managers globally, can you please share with us at Franklin Templeton what you are doing in terms of achieving net zero?
Ben, as you know, we hired Ann Simpson as our global head of sustainability, and Ann, we would say is globally renowned in this space. And you know her well because she worked with you at CalPERS, and was a COP26 delegate, and really well known in the space. And so we're excited to have her join us. Last year, Franklin Templeton and many of our specialized investment managers joined the industry-leading Net Zero Asset Managers Initiative. We will be releasing our report this July, and we intend to, disclose how much of our AUM falls under the Net Zero Initiative, and we'll be releasing targets as well as the methodology and how we're measuring those targets. So really excited about that. And then, as a company, we're working hard to reduce our emissions and expanding our Scope 3 reporting requirements. So, it's a big area of focus for us as a firm.
Thanks, Jenny. Also, Jenny, as you know, one of the challenges the industry or the financial market is facing in terms of addressing climate change is the lack of quality data, and comes because of that, the investment thesis for climate change is not quite clearly defined yet. And also, we know that Franklin Templeton is known for its active management skills. People say that, when you don't have a lot of data or consistency in data, that's where really active management is going to shine. So could you please share with us at Franklin Templeton, how are you applying fundamental research and active management in terms of addressing climate change?
Well, I think, Ben, you hit the most important point, which is just that the data is not very good out there. And, we know that if you take the top 3 data providers, their data only correlates about 50% of the time. So frankly, I don't see how you can truly be a genuine, ESG sustainability manager without having a component of active management, because it requires engagement from your investment team. And at Franklin Templeton, we have a centralized group that is really headed by Ann Simpson that's helping, find data, think about frameworks, supporting our investment teams. But in the end, it's actually each of the individual investment teams that engage with companies to understand their approach on sustainability and try to really get good data that frankly requires a lot of digging. And then they apply it to their investment decisions as part of their investment model.
Speaking of active management, Franklin Templeton is also known at utilizing technology in your active management. So can you please share with us on this front, particularly on climate investing or sustainable investing, how Franklin Templeton is applying another strength of yours, which is technology, to be part of the solution?
You can't change what you can't measure. And so, for us, it's about really trying to find those sources of data. And frankly, again, because as we talked about, the sources that provide sustainable metrics and data, don't correlate all the time. So you want to be able to aggregate from a lot of different sources data and be able to synthesize that and analyze that in such a way that you can then apply it to your ESG models. And so that's a really important component to be able to do that. And then you want to frankly leverage things like AI to help you go through and build algorithms and methodologies, because, frankly, especially when you start talking about Scope 3, we're talking about just a massive amount of data that has to be analyzed to be able to inform your investment decisions. And this is a journey. Nobody's getting their Scope 1, 2, and 3 quickly, but we're getting better and better, I think, every year. And I think that's really important. And then at Franklin Templeton, we have some fintech incubators that are trying to address this space. And so whether it's using AI or blockchain or algorithms for analytics, we're working with these companies as they're building their business model to understand how they can be of value that helps us solve our problems on trying to be able to analyze ESG data.
The data is the biggest challenge, and also the data quality, as you mentioned, currently the correlation among different ESG data providers is quite low, about 50%. And that's the term that coined by some researcher at MIT called aggregated confusion. There's so much confusion out there compared to other financial data. For example, credit rating ranked by different credit rating agencies, the correlation probably north of 95%. But in ESG data space, we're not quite there yet. But again, as you point out, that's exactly where our active management skills, our technology can really help us to shine in this area. So the next question I have for you is really shift a little bit different. Data is the missing information for investors. The investor needs quality data to develop the risk and return analytical tools for climate change. So that's first missing I information. But at the same time, people also argue that the investor need another I. In this case, the second I is incentives. The investor needs the right incentive to come into as being part of the solution. So what's your view on carbon pricing and carbon neutrality? So based on carbon pricing, what's your view on the second piece of the missing I, which is the incentives?
So I think, Ben, the cost of transitioning to a low carbon economy are significant. They're significant in that, let's face it, some of the early technologies aren't economical right out of the gate. They require investment and research. And so you have to incent people to actually invest in those things. There are jobs. There are a lot of people employed in, the traditional energy markets and in the fossil fuels. And so you have to be able to do job transitions. You can't just leave people unemployed and act like it's not a cost to the transition. So I think it's being realistic on that. It's building incentives that incent people to the behaviors that you want. So in some cases, it's subsidy for some of these types of renewable energies. And in other cases, it's actually pulling away some of the subsidies that exist out there. And then frankly, it's about being honest about the cost. If somebody's polluting an environment, you have to apply that cost as the cost of that resource. And so again, this is where I think as we get better and better with the data and understand this better, we're actually able from a societal and economic standpoint to better target capital and to better deploy capital towards a transition.
Thanks, Jenny. Absolutely. We all know that in order to change behavior, we have to change the incentives, and carbon pricing is a big part of the incentive structure here. The last question I have for you is really almost like the elephant in the room, the center of the debate around sustainability investing, which is the trade-off. What's your view on the trade-off? People say you cannot really do well and do good at the same time. And when I look at Franklin Templeton and your family, with almost 75 years old of history, that is an example, living example of a sustainable business. And I'm sure, across 3 generations, your family and the firm has developed a very deep philosophy in terms of trade-off, if there's any trade-off, right, between doing good and doing well for the society.
Well, I think we have to shift the debate from trade-offs or cost benefit to really positive sum outcomes. So, you're both going to have good investment returns as well as positive impact. And I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, they can't be mutually exclusive because people's savings are so important for their retirement. And financial independence. That's a really important, and that's what somebody like a Franklin Templeton is hired to provide to our clients. But again, kind of back to the other point, we also have to be honest about the true cost of any kind of investment and make sure we're applying the true cost. And I do think part of those incentives will help in the financial returns to ensure kind of a just transition. But I think there's some examples where you could see this having worked. For example, China has 20% of the world's population, but only 7% of the water. So they knew they had an issue. So they actually encouraged domestic and foreign investment and to create ways to help them solve the water problem, right? And that's a great example of deploying capital, leveraging some incentives to do it, but also, unlocking ingenuity to solve really important societal problems. So, I think a green transition can also be, commensurate with a just society and positive outcomes.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm so glad you mentioned the water example. As you know, the Franklin Templeton newly established investment institute, one of their recent publications of research topics on water, and now they are researching on food security. So I know your firm's taking a very active role in leading not just climate change, water, and food security. I want to thank you very much for spending time with us, and thank you for your great insight.
Thanks for having me, Ben. It's great to be here.